The red dust of Mars swirled outside the reinforced windows of Research Station Olympus. Dr. Eleanor Frost watched the storm through narrowed eyes, her attention divided between the howling Martian winds and the unusual data scrolling across her monitor. 3 weeks of anomalous readings from the Deep Space Array, and today they had intensified tenfold. "Dr. Frost, you need to see this." The voice of her colleague, Dr. Rajiv Patel, crackled through the intercom. "The signal pattern has changed." Eleanor brushed a strand of silver-streaked hair from her face and tapped her wrist communicator. "On my way." The corridors of Station Olympus hummed with activity as she made her way to the communications hub. After 15 years studying potential extraterrestrial microbes on Mars, Eleanor had never expected to be at the center of humanity's first contact situation. Yet the signals they'd been tracking suggested intelligent design, complex mathematical sequences impossible to attribute to natural cosmic phenomena. The door to the communications hub slid open, revealing a room filled with tense faces illuminated by blue screen light. Rajiv motioned her over, pointing to a central holographic display. "It's not random anymore," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're responding to our automated greeting protocol." Eleanor leaned forward, studying the intricate patterns pulsing across the display. "Have you notified Earth Command?" "Transmission sent 30 minutes ago," replied Communications Officer Jensen, her fingers flying across a touch interface. "But there's more. Whatever they are, they're not just sending signals anymore. They're here." The main screen switched to a feed from one of the orbital telescopes. A formation of sleek vessels had appeared in the shadow of Jupiter, their metallic hulls reflecting the distant sunlight. They were unlike anything humans had ever built, organic in shape, with no visible propulsion systems. "How many?" Eleanor asked. "We count 23 primary vessels and numerous smaller craft," Jensen replied. "No aggressive maneuvers detected, but they've positioned themselves strategically throughout the outer system." "They're being cautious," observed Lieutenant Darian Hayes, the station's security chief. His weathered face betrayed no emotion, but Eleanor noted how his hand rested near his sidearm. Hayes had served in the Earth-Mars conflict a decade earlier, and his instincts for threat assessment were finely honed. "Or they're surrounding us," Hayes added quietly. Within hours, Earth's leading powers had mobilized their space fleets, a mere handful of military vessels compared to the visitors' armada. As xenobiologist for the Mars Research Initiative, Eleanor found herself suddenly promoted to the diplomatic team assembled to make first contact. "This is unprecedented," Admiral Victoria Stone declared during the emergency briefing. Her holographic image flickered slightly as it projected into Station Olympus's conference room. "Dr. Frost, your expertise in extraterrestrial biology makes you our best resource. You'll be joining the greeting committee. Lieutenant Hayes will accompany you as security detail." Hayes frowned. "With respect, Admiral, I think there's something off about these visitors. They positioned themselves throughout our system before announcing their presence. That's not typically how you approach someone you want to befriend." "Noted, Lieutenant," Stone replied, "but we can't assume hostile intent. Earth's Combined Council has voted for diplomatic engagement. The first meeting will take place on neutral ground, Phobos Station." 3 days later, Eleanor stood in Phobos Station's Grand Observation Dome, watching as the sleek shuttle of the aliens, who called themselves veterans, docked with precision. Her heart raced with a mixture of scientific excitement and primal fear. The veterans emerged with grace, tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors subtly as they moved. Their facial features were almost human-like, yet with an ethereal quality, large, almond-shaped eyes of deep purple, no visible nose but delicate breathing slits, and mouths that seemed to smile perpetually. Their leader, who introduced himself as Ambassador Krull, bowed deeply. "We come in harmony," he said, his voice melodic and perfect in unaccented English. "The Veteran Collective has watched your species with great interest. Your resilience and adaptability are remarkable qualities. How long have you been observing us?" Eleanor asked, trying to maintain her scientific composure while faced with the living proof of intelligent alien life. "We have monitored Earth transmissions for many of your years," Kroll replied. "We wish to understand your civilization before initiating contact." The diplomatic meetings that followed seemed promising. The veterans offered technological exchanges, cultural sharing, and mutual defense pacts. They spoke of a galactic community of intelligent species and humanity's potential place within it. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities: clean energy systems, medical advances that could eliminate disease, propulsion methods that could reach distant stars in weeks rather than centuries. Yet Lieutenant Hayes remained suspicious. "They're giving us too much, too quickly," he told Eleanor one evening, as they reviewed the day's meeting transcripts in her temporary quarters on Phobos. "And have you noticed? They answer every question without really telling us anything about their home world, their true capabilities, or why they're really here." Eleanor had noticed. As a scientist, she recognized the pattern of information control. The veterans shared spectacular technological concepts but withheld crucial implementation details. They spoke of their society in broad, utopian terms while deflecting questions about their history or conflicts. "I need to access their shuttle," Hayes said suddenly. "Something's not right with their story, and I need proof before I take my concerns to Admiral Stone." "That's a serious breach of diplomatic protocol," Eleanor warned. "If you're caught." "If I'm right, protocol is the least of our worries," Hayes replied grimly. 2 days later, Hayes disappeared for 6 hours. When he returned to Eleanor's quarters, his face was ashen. "They're not what they appear to be," he said, sliding a data chip across her desk. "I managed to download fragments of their navigation data. They haven't come from another star system. They've been hiding in the Kuiper Belt for at least 3 Earth years, studying us, mapping our defenses." Eleanor's blood ran cold as she reviewed the files. "We need to alert Admiral Stone immediately." But before they could transmit their findings, Phobos Station trembled violently. Emergency alarms blared as the lights flickered and died, replaced by dim red emergency lighting. "They know," Hayes said, drawing his weapon. "They've made their move." Through the observation windows, Eleanor watched in horror as previously concealed weapons systems deployed from the veteran vessels now surrounding Mars. Earth's small defensive fleet was already engaged in battle, and losing badly. "This isn't a first contact," Hayes said grimly. "It's an invasion." They raced through the corridors toward the emergency shuttle bay. The station shuddered again under an energy weapon impact. Around them, station personnel ran in panic as announcements blared evacuation orders. They rounded a corner and came face to face with Ambassador Kroll, but not as they had known him. The veteran's form had shifted, his once humanoid appearance melting away to reveal something more insectoid, with multiple limbs and compound eyes that gleamed with cold intelligence. "Dr. Frost, Lieutenant Hayes," Kroll's voice had lost its melodic quality, now clicking and harsh. "How unfortunate that you discovered our preparations prematurely." Hayes raised his weapon, but Kroll moved with blinding speed, knocking it aside. "Your species' suspicion is remarkably persistent," Kroll said. "It is why we chose a gradual approach. The first wave of infiltrators has already integrated into your Earth societies. Your governments, military installations, and communication networks have been compromised for months." "Why?" Eleanor demanded. "If you wanted our planet, why the charade?" "We do not merely want your planet, Doctor. We want your species' unique biological adaptability. The veteran collective does not conquer, we harvest and absorb. Your genetic material is particularly valuable to our evolution." Hayes moved to shield Eleanor. "Earth won't fall easily. Resistance is expected but futile," Kroll replied. "We have studied your capabilities extensively. Your weapons cannot harm our advanced technology." A sudden explosion rocked the corridor, sending debris crashing down between them and Kroll. Hayes seized the opportunity, grabbing Eleanor's arm and pulling her toward an alternative route to the shuttle bay. "We need to get to Mars base," he shouted over the alarms. "The communication arrays there can punch through any interference they've set up. Earth needs to know what they're really facing." As they fought their way to a small emergency shuttle, Eleanor's scientific mind was already racing, cataloging everything she had observed about Vedran biology and the limitations of their shape-shifting abilities. If the aliens could be wounded by falling debris, they weren't invulnerable. If they needed human genetic material, they had weaknesses of their own. "This isn't over," she told Hayes as they strapped into the shuttle. "First contact turned into a nightmare, but humans are survivors. If the Vedrans studied us as thoroughly as they claim, they should know better than to corner us." The shuttle detached from the dying station, accelerating toward the red planet below. Behind them, the battle for Mars orbit raged, Earth vessels fighting valiantly despite overwhelming odds. Ahead lay Mars base Olympus, their last hope to warn Earth about the true nature of humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, not visitors, not allies, but predators who had made a fatal error. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive. As the shuttle entered Mars' atmosphere, Hayes turned to Eleanor. "If they've been studying us for years, how did they miss how dangerous we can be when threatened?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed as she watched the approaching landscape. "That's exactly the question we need to answer, and the advantage we need to exploit." The shuttle touched down amid the swirling red dust of Mars, and the real battle for humanity's future began. Humanity Unbound. 3 days after the fall of Phobos Station, Dr. Eleanor Frost hunched over an improvised laboratory table in the depths of Mars base Olympus. The facility had been locked down tight, its exterior disguised by holographic projectors to appear damaged and abandoned. Outside, Vedran scout ships patrolled with increasing frequency. "They know we escaped," Lieutenant Hayes said, entering the laboratory with Commander Olivia Westbrook, the highest-ranking officer remaining at the Mars base. "Their search patterns are becoming more methodical." Eleanor barely looked up from her microscope. The sample she'd managed to collect during their escape, cellular residue from Ambassador Krull when the explosion had injured him, was proving enlightening. "They're not invulnerable," she said, motioning the others closer. "Their shape-shifting abilities require tremendous energy expenditure. And there's something else, their cellular structure breaks down when exposed to specific radioactive isotopes common in Earth's nuclear reactors." Commander Westbrook's eyes widened. "You're saying our outdated nuclear technology might be more effective than our latest plasma weapons?" "Precisely," Eleanor confirmed. "They've adapted to resist conventional weapons, but they've never encountered our particular form of nuclear energy. It's toxic to their biological systems." The commander nodded thoughtfully. "That explains why they were so interested in helping us upgrade our energy infrastructure. They wanted to eliminate their one vulnerability." Hayes leaned against the laboratory table, arms crossed. "We've managed to establish a secure communication channel with Admiral Stone. Earth is in chaos. Vedran infiltrators have disrupted government functions in most major nations, but resistance is forming. The question is, how do we get this information to Earth before the Vedrans complete their takeover?" A plan began taking shape. While the Vedrans controlled the primary communication relays and transit routes, Mars base Olympus possessed something unique, an experimental quantum entanglement communicator, designed to transmit data instantaneously regardless of distance or interference. "It's never been tested at Earth-Mars distances," cautioned Dr. Morgan Chen, the communications specialist. His hands moved rapidly over the complex controls. "And we only have enough power for a single transmission." "Then we make it count," Commander Westbrook declared. "Dr. Frost, compile everything you've discovered about Vedran biology. Lieutenant Hayes, assemble tactical weaknesses you observed in their ships and weapons systems. We're giving Earth the blueprint for resistance." As they worked feverishly to prepare their one-shot message, the true scope of the Vedran invasion became clearer. Intercepted communications revealed that Earth's major military installations had fallen within hours. London, Beijing, and New York were under Vedran control. Only scattered resistance pockets remained, along with submarine fleets that had been submerged during the initial attack and remote bases in Antarctica and the Himalayas. They're methodical, Hayes observed, studying the invasion pattern. But they're also predictable. They prioritize technological centers and communication hubs, treating human resistance as an afterthought. That's their mistake. 2 weeks after their escape from Phobos, they were ready to transmit. The quantum communicator hummed to life, its crystalline core pulsing with blue-white energy. Transmission commencing, Dr. Chen announced. Targeting Admiral Stone's last known secure location. The message was compressed into a single burst: schematics for weapons effective against Vedran biology, tactical weaknesses in their ship designs, and most crucially, the location of the Vedran command vessel, disguised as an asteroid in Earth orbit. Transmission complete, Chen confirmed. Now we pray it reached them. They didn't have to wait long for an answer. Within hours, the quantum receiver flickered with an incoming signal, not a full message but a simple code: message received. Operation Prometheus commencing in 72 hours. Hold position. Hope surged through the Mars base, but their celebration was short-lived. That evening, the proximity alarms blared. Multiple Vedran vessels approaching, announced the sensor technician. They've found us. Commander Westbrook's voice remained steady as she issued orders. All personnel to battle stations. Initiate Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega wasn't a defense strategy, it was an evacuation plan. While most of the staff would retreat to the underground bunkers beneath Olympus Mons, a small team including Dr. Frost and Lieutenant Hayes would attempt to reach the emergency spacecraft hidden in an abandoned mining tunnel. We need to get this research to the Resistance in person, Eleanor insisted, gathering her data cores and samples as alarms blared around them. If Earth's counterattack fails, this information could make the difference in a prolonged war. The Vedrans hit the base with surgical precision, their energy weapons carving through the outer defenses. The base's automated defense systems returned fire, buying precious time as the evacuation proceeded. This way, Hayes guided Eleanor through maintenance tunnels as explosions rocked the structure above them. The tunnel entrance is 200 meters ahead. They emerged onto the Martian surface just as the main power core of Olympus base detonated in a controlled explosion, taking several Vedran attack ships with it. The diversion worked. In the chaos and dust storm kicked up by the explosion, Hayes, Eleanor, and a handful of essential personnel slipped away toward the mining tunnel. The emergency vessel, little more than an oversized escape pod with basic propulsion and life support, was their last hope. Designed as an emergency evacuation craft, it was crude but possessed one critical advantage: it didn't register on standard detection systems. Even if we reach Earth, we'll be flying into an active war zone, warned engineer Ryoko Tanaka as she performed final system checks. The Vedrans control orbit. Landing undetected will be nearly impossible. Nearly impossible still means possible, Hayes replied, helping the final team members aboard. We have 72 hours before Operation Prometheus begins. We need to be in position to help when it does. The journey to Earth was tense and cramped. 16 people packed into a vessel designed for 12, subsisting on emergency rations and recycled water. Eleanor used the time to refine her research, working with Dr. Tanaka to design crude but effective weapons using their limited resources. The Vedran's cellular structure destabilizes when exposed to specific radiation frequencies, Eleanor explained to the team. Even handheld devices could be modified to emit those frequencies, not enough to kill them instantly, but enough to prevent their shape-shifting and weaken them significantly. As they approached Earth orbit 68 hours later, the devastation became apparent. Debris fields of destroyed satellites and spacecraft cluttered near Earth space. The planet below showed scars of conflict, burning cities and the flashes of ongoing battles. Entering stealth approach, announced Tanaka, powering down all non-essential systems. We'll aim for the Antarctic Resistance Base. It's our best chance of linking up with Admiral Stone's forces. They skimmed through Earth's atmosphere, the craft's heat shields barely holding as they made their descent. Below them, the vast white expanse of Antarctica appeared untouched by the conflict raging across more populated continents. Their landing was rough but successful, the craft skidding across ice before coming to rest near a seemingly abandoned research station. Within minutes, they were surrounded by heavily armed human soldiers emerging from concealed positions in the ice. Lieutenant Darian Hayes, Mars Base Olympus, Hayes identified himself, hands raised. We have critical intelligence and technology to assist Operation Prometheus. They were quickly escorted underground, into a vast complex hidden beneath the ice. There, they found not just a resistance base but the heart of humanity's counterattack planning. Admiral Victoria Stone greeted them personally, her normally immaculate uniform now battle-worn. "Your timing is impeccable," she said, leading them to a tactical command center bustling with activity. Operation Prometheus launches in 4 hours. The plan was audacious. Using Eleanor's research, Earth's remaining scientists had developed radiation weapons effective against veteran biology. Submarine-launched missiles had been modified to carry these payloads. The primary targets were the veteran command vessels, including the asteroid-disguised mothership Eleanor's team had identified. "The weapons are ready," Admiral Stone explained, "but we have one critical problem. The veterans have established a defensive shield around their command ship. We need a team to deliver an EMP device directly to their shield generator." Hayes exchanged glances with Eleanor. "A suicide mission?" "Not necessarily," replied a new voice. A lean man with cybernetic enhancements stepped forward. "Colonel Marcus Blackwood, Special Tactics. My team has modified veteran shuttle crafts we captured. With Dr. Frost's biological data, we've created convincing disguises. We can get a small team aboard their command ship." The plan crystallized rapidly. Colonel Blackwood's team would infiltrate the veteran command ship disguised as returning scouts. Once aboard, they would disable the shields, allowing Earth submarines to launch their specially modified missiles. Meanwhile, resistance forces worldwide would simultaneously attack known veteran positions, creating maximum chaos and preventing reinforcement. "Dr. Frost, we need you on the infiltration team," Admiral Stone said. "Your knowledge of veteran biology is essential if anything goes wrong." Eleanor nodded, despite her fear. Hayes immediately stepped forward. "Then I'm going too. Someone needs to keep our scientist alive." The next 3 hours were a blur of preparation. Eleanor and Hayes were fitted with crude but effective disguises, artificial skin layers infused with veteran cellular patterns, enough to fool basic scanners. The infiltration shuttle was loaded with the EMP device, disguised as standard equipment. As they prepared to depart, Admiral Stone addressed the assembled forces via secure communication. "Operation Prometheus is humanity's last, best hope. The veterans believe they understand us, that they can predict our actions because they've studied us for years. But they've missed something fundamental about human nature. When cornered, we don't just fight, we evolve, we adapt, we overcome. Today we show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." The captured veteran shuttle lifted off, carrying Eleanor, Hayes, Colonel Blackwood, and 3 Special Forces operatives. Their approach to the massive command ship was tense but uneventful, their disguised signatures accepted without question. "They're overconfident," Blackwood observed as they docked. "They never expected we could turn their technology against them so quickly." Inside the veteran command ship, the true alien nature of their enemy became apparent. The corridors were organic, almost living, with pulsing light patterns and atmosphere that smelled faintly metallic. Veteran crew members moved with insectoid efficiency, their partially shifted forms more alien than the humanoid appearances they had presented during first contact. Following the ship schematics obtained from their intelligence, the team moved toward the central shield generator. They encountered few obstacles. The veterans, believing their victory nearly complete, had relaxed their internal security. "Shield control nexus ahead," whispered Specialist Jen, consulting her scanner. Minimal guard presence detected. The shield generator chamber was massive, a cathedral-like space dominated by a pulsing crystalline structure. Only 3 veteran technicians monitored the controls. The team struck swiftly and silently. Within moments, the technicians were neutralized, and Colonel Blackwood was installing the EMP device at the base of the crystal. "Charges set," he confirmed. "Detonation in 3 minutes. That should give us just enough time to reach the escape pods." But as they turned to leave, the chamber door slid open. Ambassador Kroll stood there, flanked by veteran guards, his partially shifted form revealing multiple limbs and compound eyes glittering with malice. "Dr. Frost," he clicked, mandibles flexing. "Your species' persistence is remarkable, if futile. Did you really believe your disguises would fool us completely?" Hayes raised his modified weapon, a standard pistol reconfigured to emit the radiation frequency Eleanor had discovered. "Back away, or discover how futile our resistance really is." Kroll's compound eyes shifted, focusing on the weapon. "You've learned something of our biology. Impressive, but inadequate. One discovery will not save your species." "It's not just one discovery," Eleanor replied, stepping forward. "While you studied us, you failed to understand us. Humans don't just use technology, we improvise, we adapt. Every defeat teaches us, every setback makes us stronger." Kroll made a sound that might have been laughter. "Noble sentiments for a species about to be harvested. Your genetic material will serve the collective, even if your consciousness does not survive." "That's where you're wrong," Eleanor said calmly as the countdown on the EMP device reached 30 seconds. "We're not here to negotiate. We're here to demonstrate." Blackwood and his team opened fire simultaneously, their modified weapons emitting the specific radiation frequency that disrupted veteran cellular cohesion. Kroll and his guards convulsed as their shape-shifting abilities failed, their forms partially melting as they lost control of their biological functions. "The EMP will detonate in 20 seconds, Hayes warned, pulling Eleanor toward a side exit. "We need to move." They raced through the corridors as the countdown continued. Behind them, alarms began to sound as the veterans realized something was wrong. They reached the emergency escape pod section just as the EMP detonated. The entire ship shuddered as electrical systems failed catastrophically. Emergency lighting flickered and died, plunging the corridors into darkness broken only by occasional sparks. In the chaos, they sealed themselves into an escape pod and jettisoned from the dying command ship. As their pod tumbled away, Eleanor watched through the viewport as the veteran shields collapsed. Almost immediately, streaks of light appeared from Earth's surface, the submarine launched missiles rising to strike the now vulnerable command vessels. "Look," Hayes pointed as similar lights appeared across the globe. "That's not just the submarines. That's every resistance cell on Earth attacking simultaneously." The veteran command ship erupted in a series of explosions, its organic structure breaking apart as the specially designed warheads delivered their fatal radiation. Similar explosions blossomed across Earth orbit as other veteran vessels suffered the same fate. "They never understood what they were facing," Eleanor said quietly. "They studied our technology, our military capabilities, our resources, but they missed what makes humans truly dangerous." "Which is?" Hayes asked, watching the destruction of the invasion fleet. "We don't accept defeat," Eleanor replied, her eyes reflecting the distant explosions. "No matter the odds, humans always believe there's a way to win." The veterans thought first contact would be their greatest triumph, instead, it became their worst nightmare. As their escape pod descended toward Earth, Admiral Stone's voice crackled over the emergency channel, "Operation Prometheus successful. Veteran command structure neutralized. Ground resistance reporting enemy disarray worldwide. The tide has turned. The nightmare of first contact was ending. Humanity had been tested, nearly broken, but emerged stronger. The veterans' careful study had missed the most important truth about the species they sought to harvest: humans weren't just adaptive, they were indomitable. And as Eleanor's pod streaked through Earth's atmosphere toward a world forever changed by alien contact, she knew this wasn't the end of humanity's story, it was merely the beginning of a new chapter. The stars were no longer just points of light to wonder at, they were destinations to reach, civilizations to encounter, and yes, perhaps dangers to overcome. But after facing the veterans, humanity would never again be unprepared for what waited among the stars.